Now that we're done drawing our reindeer scene, let's get started with part two, where we start applying some watercolor. First step is to pull out your oil pastels or your crayons, something with oil or something with wax. We're going to make some magic using science and paint. We're going to use oil pastel to draw in a few stars. You get to choose what color you want to work with, but I would like to work with white. You decide how many you would like to draw in there. Pause if you need to before beginning the next step for this video. But before you begin the next step, you're going to want to make sure that your fingers are clean, especially if you are using oil pastel, because those oils on your fingers will transfer to your paper and then you'll get fingerprints that won't accept your watercolor. It'll look kind of messy and it will make your watercolor piece look kind of smudgy, and you just want to avoid that specifically for craft reasons. Next, we're going to apply a wash. So pick a wide brush, one that will allow you to cover space, wide open spaces, easily and quickly. Um, Coat that brush in water and spread that water across the paper. Don't worry about running the water across your oil pastel. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but do avoid getting contact on your moon because it's gonna be hard to have a pure white moon if you accidentally have some of your watercolor bleed into it. Next step is to choose a color of your choice. It could be any color. We are focusing on the aurora borealis, so we're going to use, or at least I'm going to use, some blues, some purples, and some greens to emphasize that. I am going to use my wet background as a vehicle to help move my watercolor smoothly and quickly across the paper using my wide brush. Remember, skip the moon. Don't worry about your oil pastel or your wax snowflakes or stars that you put in with crayon. You can add different variants of the color that you have chosen. I have chosen blue, but I'm going to also add some dark blue in the sky because the sky is not all the same color all at the same time. I would use your color all the way down to 1/3 of your skyline and then start repeating step one with a different color. Same rule applies here. If you want some darker values of your secondary set of colors, feel free to block those in now as we speak, and then choose a different color for your third section of the sky and repeat step one all over again with that color. I would be very careful by avoiding painting any part of the reindeer for this last section of the sky because you don't want whatever color that you put down to mix in with your black. So paint carefully accordingly. By doing so, you may have to switch out your brush for a smaller brush as you get in between the legs of the reindeer, around the face and around the fur part to get in those cracks and crevices. Now for your darker color, you're going to want more paint and less water. So if need be, lather up that paint on your brush after you are done putting down that faded wash. I would wait until your paper is dry before doing this. That way your color doesn't bleed across your page. So just make those long strokes of dark color on the paper once your wash is dry. Now it's time to add black to that beautiful reindeer you got there. Um, I would switch out to a smaller brush or your smaller size brush to give you more control over that shape. Use the bristles of your brush and gently, gently stroke in those antler pieces, kind of like a feathered touch. Let your paintbrush glide gently over the surface of your paper to get those thin feathery strokes for your antlers. You can use this like the flatness of your brush if you have a flat square brush. You can use a flatness on the thick areas like the torso, but for defined edges, I would just use the bristles or the edge of the bristles to help get those clean, straight cut lines for the legs. So take your time with this. Lots and lots and lots and lots of paint, very little water. If you have too much water, it's gonna kind of bleed through the shape. So do a little tester before you begin, just to make sure that your brush isn't too wet. Now we're going to do something similar with your ground plane. You're going to put a wash down on that, a color of your choice. I chose light blue because I kind of want to reflect the blue in the sky onto the surface of the ice. Put down a really light blue wash using lots of water, very little watercolor, and then wait for that first layer to dry before adding on your texture. You're going to want to switch out to a smaller brush when you get in between the legs to avoid getting black in your color. Just take your time. Now use a dry on dry technique. Dry brush loaded with paint on a dry surface to draw in your texture for the rocks and the planks of ice on the ground. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on Carly's Colorful Corner on YouTube, or feel free to follow us on our Facebook platform.